Today we're going to be talking about evaluating resources using the CRAAP method. Every day you're naturally evaluating situations to make decisions, and basically all CRAAP asks you to do is stop and think about the sources that you're using. Now, CRAAP is designed specifically for research sources. It's also specifically designed to help you find good sources for whatever it is that you're looking for. So CRAAP stands for currency, relevance, authority, accuracy, and purpose. I'm going to go through each one of these and give you a little bit more information on what to look at and what to think about when you're going through these criteria. So with currency, you're talking about the timeliness of the information. Information occurs at the moment of the event and then multiple periods throughout after that, as you'll notice in the timeline down at the bottom right here. But what you need to think about is, what does the information in the source that you're using tell you about the timeliness of the information? And what does that information tell you about the other information that you're finding? So you can look at something and see something that happened immediately after the event and then weeks after or months after, and that information is going to change as it goes through the timeliness factor. So if you're looking at a historical information and you're wanting to write a historical paper, you want information that happened as close to the event as possible. But if you're looking for something that is the most current information and research that is currently happening, you don't want that old information. You want the most up-to-date information possible. So you need to make sure that you're looking at the currentness of the information. Take note of this note up here. Just stating when the item was published isn't good enough. You have to look at the other information that's out there and identify what else there is. Relevance is all about you and your need. So this is all about what your question is, how you're going to use the information, what you're going to do with it. And so you want to look and see how relevant is this source to answering your question. You want to be able to provide both positive and negative views. So you want to be able to provide a objective opinion on what you're presenting. So you want some things that relate to what you want, and you want some things that are opposite of what you want. But you want to make sure that they all relate in some way to whatever it is that you're asking. Authority is who wrote it and what gives them the right to write it. So the example I typically use is, I have a MLS in library science. I have a PhD in educational leadership. You do not want me giving you information on how to pull a tooth. It doesn't make any sense. There's no reason why I would write it because I have no experience in that. So when you're talking about authority, you want to look and see, what does this person do for a living? What is it that they have done and what makes them an expert? You need to look at their degrees. You need to look at their credentials. You need to look at everything that involves who they are, which means you have to research them. The accuracy is the truthfulness of the content. So we're talking about the content at this point. We're talking about looking at, after you've read it, how accurate is that information. And so what you're also looking at is, notice here, verifiability is typically in 5 other sources. So you not only have this source saying it, but those sources aren't linked to each other, and you have other sources saying the same thing. That then makes the information verifiable. And typically 5 sources is what most people go by. But if you're also looking at information that doesn't agree with what you want, then you also want to be able to find 1 or 2 sources that also agree with the disagreement, if that makes any sense. So you want to make sure that your content is going to be fair and equitable and also verifiable. So you want no opinion. You don't want anything that's going to be subjective. So anybody who's doing research is going to give you their biases written into the paper. They're going to tell you, this is my bias, this is my bias, this is my bias. I am laying them out there so you know where I'm coming from, so that if it happens to peek through in my writing, you're already aware of that. That was what my bias was. For example, in my dissertation, one of my biases is the fact that I'm a librarian, and therefore I think studying is important. And so I stated that in my methodology, that for me, as a librarian, I think library space is important and I think studying is important. Those are two of my biases while I'm doing this research, because to me, that's what I think is important. The purpose is the reason the work itself was created, and then also looking for any biases that show through in the writing and in the results that they're finding. So what you want to make sure that you're doing in the purpose is, why was it created? Why did this person feel it was so important to put it on paper and put it out there for the world to pick apart? And if you can identify that, then you'll probably identify slightly part of their biases, but part of bias is making sure that they are presenting the information they're finding as objectively as possible. As human beings, we all have biases. It's something we all happen to have, and therefore you just want to make sure that in your writing, you try to remain objective. And so purpose is looking at, why was it created, and are the biases identified, and are they as limited as possible within the writing? So that's the CRAAP method, and you're going to be using this method while you're doing the CRAAP assignment, which I will explain in another video. As always, if you have any questions, you want to make any comments, go to the discussion board and leave me a comment there, or email me directly and I'll answer it as quickly as I can.